"I've been expecting you, Commander," I said, a hidden camera live-streaming his every move. For 6 months, he thought he was hunting me. He never realized he was the one walking into my trap. The rain fell in relentless sheets, blurring the neon signs of Oakhaven's old industrial district into watercolor streaks. It was 11:52 p.m. My beat-up sedan, a relic from law school, sputtered through the deserted streets, a route I'd chosen for its lack of surveillance. But tonight, surveillance found me. Flashing blue and red lights filled my rearview mirror, a violent, strobing heartbeat in the darkness. My own heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drum solo of adrenaline and fear. I pulled over, the engine groaning in protest. In the driver's seat of the patrol car behind me was the silhouette I knew better than my own. Commander Marcus Thorne, the dark heart of Oakhaven's police department. This was no random stop. Thorne approached my window with a predator's deliberate pace, raindrops glistening on the shoulders of his immaculate uniform. He tapped the glass with a gloved knuckle. I lowered the window, letting the damp, metallic scent of the city night fill the car. "License and registration, Ms. Sterling," he said, his voice a low, gravelly rumble that was meant to intimidate. It was a voice I'd heard in courtrooms, a voice that twisted truth into whatever shape he desired. "What's the reason for the stop, Commander?" I asked, my voice steady, betraying none of the chaos churning inside me. Years as a public defender had taught me to build a fortress around my emotions. "One of your taillights is out. A safety hazard in this weather." He peered past me, his gaze sweeping the car's interior. I glanced at my rearview mirror. The reflection of my taillights on the wet asphalt was perfect. He was lying. As he spoke, a second patrol car pulled up silently behind his, its lights off. Sergeant Cole, Thorne's loyal bulldog, emerged and began a slow, deliberate walk toward the rear of my vehicle. A third, unmarked car parked across the street. 3 officers for a broken taillight. My stomach tightened. "Please step out of the car, Zara," Thorne said, the use of my first name a calculated violation of professional boundaries. His smile was a thin, cruel line. "Am I being detained?" "Just a routine check, counselor. Unless you have something to hide." His hand rested on the butt of his holstered pistol, a casual threat. My mind raced. This intersection was a dead zone for city cameras. My phone was recording audio, but that wouldn't be enough. Through my side mirror, I watched Cole circle my trunk, his hand patting the pocket of his tactical jacket. Thorne's manufactured patience wore thin. "Step out of the vehicle now, Miss Sterling, or I'll be forced to add resisting arrest to the citation." I unlocked the door, the click echoing in the tense silence. Whatever they had planned was already in motion. The moment I was out, soaked by the cold rain, Thorne positioned himself between me and my car, blocking my view. "I'm going to have to search your vehicle," he announced. "You don't have probable cause." I did not consent to a search. I recited the words of familiar shield. A smirk played on his lips. "I detected the distinct odor of marijuana emanating from your vehicle when you rolled down the window. That gives me all the probable cause I need." The lie was so smooth, so practiced. He nodded at Cole. "Check the trunk." I tried to move, to witness what I knew was coming, but Thorne blocked my path. "Stay right where you are." Behind him, I heard the trunk latch pop. Cole's body shielded his movements as he reached into his jacket, pulling out a heavy-duty duffel bag. It was a swift, almost invisible motion. He placed it beneath the spare tire cover. "Commander," Cole called out, his voice laced with false surprise. "You're going to want to see this." Thorne's eyes gleamed with triumph before he composed his face into a mask of stern duty. He walked to the trunk, leaving me with the third officer. I locked eyes with the young officer for a split second and saw a flicker of shame before he looked away. "I know what you're doing," I yelled, my voice ringing out over the storm, loud enough for my hidden recorder and the secret camera across the street to capture every word. "This is a setup." Thorne returned, his expression grave. He held up the unzipped bag, revealing bricks of what looked like heroin, stamped with a distinctive logo. "Zara Sterling," he said, his voice booming with false authority. "You have a very serious problem. The system I had dedicated my life to navigating was now a cage, and its steel doors slammed shut behind me. By 6 a.m., the Oakhaven Chronicle's website had my booking photo plastered on its front page. Public defender arrested in major drug bust. My face, exhausted and defiant, was already being judged guilty by thousands. In a county jail's common area, the small television mounted high on the wall broadcast Commander Thorne's press conference. I stood motionless in a faded orange jumpsuit, the stench of disinfectant and despair clinging to me. "It is a profoundly sad day for justice in Oakhaven," Thorne told a throng of reporters, his face a perfect portrait of somber duty. "When an officer of the court, someone sworn to uphold the law, betrays that sacred trust, it cuts deep." A reporter shouted, "Commander, is it true Ms. Sterling was investigating your department for misconduct?" Thorne's response was a masterclass in deflection. "Ms. Sterling has a history of making baseless allegations against our city's finest. This arrest, unfortunately, seems to reveal her true motivations for attempting to discredit the hard-working officers who keep our streets safe." The camera cut to the district attorney, who announced the immediate suspension of my law license. My cases, my clients, people who had no one else, were being reassigned. Lives I had fought for would be left in the lurch. My laptop and phone, containing months of my investigation into Thorne, were now in his possession, bagged as evidence. My cell assignment was no accident. I shared the cramped space with Carla Mendez, a former ER nurse arrested 3 months prior for possession. Her case had Thorne's fingerprints all over it. "Never thought I'd see you in here. Counselor," she said quietly after the guards made their final round, the darkness offering a fragile veil of privacy. "I didn't do this, Carla," I whispered back, the words feeling hollow even to me. "None of us did," she replied, her voice heavy with resignation. "They got Marcus Johnson last year, Elena Martinez before him. Always the same script. Traffic stop, drugs appear out of nowhere." She described a pattern of at least 7 people, all minorities, all of whom had dared to challenge Thorne's authority in some way. "What was your connection?" I asked, my mind piecing together the puzzle. "I treated a kid who'd been beaten in police custody," she said, her voice hardening. "I filed a report against the officers. 2 weeks later, Thorne himself pulled me over for a faulty brake light. She told me about their operations hub, a warehouse at Crestwood Industrial Park, Unit 4. She spoke of a shell company, Orium Logistics, used to launder money and move product. "The drugs are real," she explained. "They confiscate them in legitimate busts, then resell them. They're not just planting evidence. They're running the biggest drug ring in the state." The next day, a visitor, Detective Evan Ross, a recent transfer to Oakhaven PD, sat across from me in a non-contact visitation booth. "I don't know you," I said flatly into the receiver. "But I know you." He leaned forward, his eyes scanning the room. "Your father's case, your work. I've been following it. You're one of Thorne's men." "I'm nobody's man, but the public's," he whispered, glancing at a nearby surveillance camera. "I was sent here 6 months ago. There's a federal task force looking at Oakhaven. Your arrest just threw a grenade into the whole thing." My heart leaped, but I kept my expression guarded. "A trap or an alley?" "I don't believe you," I said, loud enough for the guards to hear. Then, softer, "Prove it." He slid a small, folded piece of paper into the slot. A burner phone number. As he stood to leave, he raised his voice. "You should really consider a plea deal, Sterling. It's your only way out." The performance was flawless. While I was being processed by the system I once fought, my sister Lena was putting our contingency plan into motion. She drove to our mother's old greenhouse, a place of sanctuary from our childhood, filled with the earthy scent of potting soil and forgotten herbs. Tucked away in the back, behind a row of dusty terracotta pots, was one specific planter. Lena broke it open carefully. Inside the false bottom, sealed in a waterproof bag, was the key, a small, encrypted USB drive left by our father. Lena didn't waste a second. She drove to the family's old cabin deep in the woods outside Oakhaven, a place off the grid and away from prying eyes. There, she met her 2 most trusted allies. Sarah Parker, a former FBI forensic accountant with a mind like a steel trap, and Alex Chun, a cybersecurity prodigy who could dance through firewalls like they were open doors. The cabin became their war room. Alex plugged in the drive. Password protected. Military-grade encryption. Lena closed her eyes, thinking back. Try the date he died. Reversed. The screen unlocked. Hundreds of files flooded the display. Surveillance photos, financial statements, witness transcripts. Our father, a detective who supposedly took his own life in disgrace, had been building a massive RICO case against Thorne. A folder labeled Orium contained shipping manifests and offshore bank records, linking Thorne Shell Corporation to a warehouse at Crestwood Industrial Park. He was so close, Lena whispered, her voice thick with emotion. He was murdered, Sarah said grimly, pointing at a document. He had a meeting scheduled with a federal prosecutor the day he died. He never made it. Alex, meanwhile, had already breached the city's network. I'm in, he announced, accessing the security feed for Crestwood Industrial, Unit 4. The grainy footage showed the warehouse, silent and dark. But as they watched, a police cruiser pulled up. Commander Thorne stepped out, followed by Sergeant Cole. They unlocked the warehouse and carried in several duffel bags. 30 minutes later, they emerged empty-handed, Thorne passing out thick envelopes to his men. Payday, Sarah muttered. This is damning, but it's inadmissible. We need something clean. Just as Alex began downloading the footage, Lena's phone rang. It was an unknown number. She answered, her blood running cold as she heard Thorne's voice. Your sister's in a great deal of trouble, Ms. Sterling, he said, his tone deceptively calm. But I'm a reasonable man. Convince her to take the plea deal, 5 years, out in 3, and I can ensure her time inside is comfortable. If you continue this little crusade, however, I can't guarantee her safety. Accidents happen. Lena's hand tightened on the phone. Are you threatening my sister? I'm offering you a choice, Thorne replied, then hung up. Lena looked at the screen, her face pale. Then she looked at Sarah and Alex, a new fire in her eyes. The threat hadn't broken her. It had forged her resolve into steel. They weren't just fighting for my freedom anymore. They were fighting for my life. Thorne's threat hung in the air of the cabin like poison gas. He knew about them. He was watching. The realization sent a chill down Lena's spine, but it was quickly replaced by a burning urgency. They were running out of time. The next morning, as she left the cabin, she found a manila envelope tucked under her car's windshield wiper. Inside was a single photograph of her, Sarah, and Alex inside the cabin, taken from a distance. A message was scrawled across it in black marker. We see you. Instead of retreating, Lena went on the offensive. She drove straight to the intersection where I was arrested. The area was a grimy stretch of road, home to a 24-hour gas station and a few shuttered storefronts. She walked into the gas station, its bell jingling softly. The clerk, a young man with tired eyes, recognized her from the news. You're her sister, right? He asked, his voice low. Yes, Lena said, her press credentials visible. I need to know if you saw anything that night. The clerk hesitated, glancing nervously toward the manager's office. Look, I don't want any trouble. My sister is innocent. They framed her. Please, if you saw anything. He leaned closer, his voice barely a whisper. Our security camera on the corner. It covers the whole intersection. The manager told the cops the feed was corrupted that night, but it wasn't. He was just scared. He slipped a small USB drive across the counter. This is a copy. He doesn't know I made it. Don't tell anyone where you got it. In her car, Lena plugged the drive in her laptop. The footage was crystal clear. It showed my car pulling over, Thorne approaching, and then, unmistakably, Sergeant Cole walking to my trunk, pulling the duffel bag from inside his jacket and planting it. It was the silver bullet they needed. She immediately called Sarah. I have it, she said, her voice trembling with a mix of triumph and relief. I have the whole thing on video. That evening, the burner phone Ross had given me buzzed. It was a text disguised as a system alert. Shipment tonight, 11 p.m. They're moving you to state prison post-trial. Be ready. Thorne was accelerating his plans. He was going to bury me in the system where he had allies on the payroll. My lawyer visited, bringing a plea offer from the DA. It was the perfect cover. As I pretended to review the documents, I slipped him a note. It contained the inventory number for my personal effects and a simple instruction for Lena. My compass necklace. The one from Dad. The necklace was more than a keepsake. It was my insurance policy. For the past 6 months, I had worn it every day. Concealed within its antique brass casing was a micro SD card. It contained audio recordings of every conversation I'd had with Thorne, copies of every document I'd uncovered, photos, financial records, everything. Thorne thought he had seized my evidence when he took my phone and laptop. He had no idea the real investigation was hanging around my neck the entire time. The final hours before the trial felt like the deep, breathless quiet before a lightning strike. Lena's team, working with my lawyer, successfully retrieved my personal effects from the evidence locker. Inside the cabin, Alex carefully pried open the back of the compass necklace. The tiny micro SD card was nestled inside, a speck of black plastic holding the weight of an entire criminal empire. The data dump was staggering. 6 months of my life, documented in encrypted files. Audio recordings of Thorne discussing drug shipments, threatening witnesses, and bragging about framing innocent people. But there was more. The necklace also contained the access key to a hidden cloud server. Uploaded to it was the complete data log from a magnetic GPS tracker. 3 months ago, during a routine client visit at the courthouse garage, I had managed to slap the tiny device onto the undercarriage of Thorne's personal vehicle. The data painted a damning portrait of his movements. Dozens of late-night trips to the Crestwood warehouse, secret meetings with known criminals, and visits to the offshore bank's local branch. "This is it," Sarah said, her voice filled with awe. "This is the whole kingdom." He has no idea. At 5:30 a.m. on the morning of my trial, the door to my holding cell clanked open. It wasn't a guard. It was Commander Thorne himself, flanked by Sergeant Cole. It was highly unusual for a commander to personally oversee a prisoner transport. He was here to gloat. "Ready for your big day, counselor?" he sneered, his eyes filled with a cold, triumphant light. "It's a shame you won't be able to practice law from a state prison cell." "I'm just eager for the truth to come out, Marcus," I replied, my voice calm and even. He chuckled. "The truth is what I say it is. A pity about that gas station camera across the street having a technical glitch that night." I smiled, a slow, deliberate expression that wiped the smirk from his face. "You mean the one that recorded Sergeant Cole planting a duffel bag in my trunk? That camera?" Thorne's composure flickered. Cole shifted uncomfortably. "Or are you talking about the GPS tracker on your car that documented your every visit to Orium Logistics for the past 3 months?" His face went rigid. He dismissed Cole with a sharp jerk of his head. Alone now, his voice dropped to a venomous whisper. "You think you're clever, but after today, none of that will matter. You'll be a number in a system I control." "You killed my father," I said, the words hanging in the air like ice. "Your father got sloppy," he hissed. "He made accusations he couldn't prove. Just like you." "That's where you're wrong," I said, my voice rising with a power I hadn't felt in days. "I have all the proof I need, and it's already in the hands of people you can't touch." For the first time, I saw genuine fear in his eyes. "You're bluffing." "This isn't a bluff, Marcus," I said, standing tall. "This is checkmate." As if on cue, the cell door swung open again. My lawyer entered, but he wasn't alone. Behind him stood Sarah Parker and Detective Evan Ross. And with them was a man in a sharp suit who radiated federal authority. "Commander Marcus Thorne," the man said, holding up a leather-bound credential folder. "My name is Assistant U.S. Attorney Davis. This is a federal warrant for your arrest on charges of racketeering, narcotics distribution, evidence tampering, and conspiracy." Thorne's face contorted in a mask of disbelief and rage. He instinctively reached for his weapon, but Ross was faster, his own gun already drawn and steady. "Don't even think about it." As federal agents swarmed in to cuff a sputtering, defeated Thorne, I walked toward him. "My father sent his files to the U.S. Attorney's Office 8 years ago," I said, my voice clear and strong. "They've been building this case ever since. My arrest wasn't your victory. It was the final piece of their puzzle." The steps of the Oakhaven courthouse were a sea of cameras and microphones. U.S. Attorney Michael stood at a podium, the city's seal behind him, and delivered the news that would shatter the city's corrupt foundation. Today marks the culmination of an 8-year federal investigation, he announced, his voice resonating with authority. Commander Marcus Thorne and 11 officers of the Oakhaven Police Department have been arrested in connection with one of the most significant police corruption rings in this state's history. Behind him, I stood with Lena and my legal team free. The charges against me were dismissed with prejudice. The news footage was electric, playing on a loop across the nation. Thorne and his crew being led in handcuffs from the warehouse, a backdrop to the $5 million in fentanyl-laced heroin seized in the raid. The web of corruption unraveled quickly. Judge Alastair Finch resigned moments before impeachment proceedings were announced. The district attorney faced disbarment. Sergeant Cole and others took plea deals, their testimony painting a devastating picture of the rot within the department. 6 months later, I stood at another podium, this one inside the newly dedicated Sterling Justice Initiative, a nonprofit funded by assets seized from Thorne's criminal enterprise. Our mission is simple, I told the packed room, to provide a voice for the voiceless and to ensure that no one has to face the crushing weight of a corrupt system alone. In the front row sat Carla Mendez and the 6 other victims framed by Thorne's reign, all now fully exonerated. Carla, now the initiative's lead outreach coordinator, smiled at me, her eyes shining with tears of gratitude. The Oakhaven PD was placed under federal oversight, with Evan Ross appointed as the interim chief. He immediately implemented sweeping reforms: mandatory body cameras, a civilian review board, and transparent evidence protocols. The change was palpable. Hope began to seep back into the communities that had been terrorized for so long. After the ceremony, I drove to the cemetery. The simple headstone that once marked my father's grave now bore a new inscription: Detective James Sterling, died in the line of duty. I placed the compass necklace on the cool granite. "We did it, Dad," I whispered. "We finished what you started." An official inquest had reclassified his death as a homicide, with Thorne as the primary suspect. As I stood to leave, I saw Ross waiting for me at a respectful distance. "He will be incredibly proud of you, Zara," he said. "There's still so much work to do," I replied, looking out over the city. "I know," he said, "but it's a start." Yes, I thought, it's a start. In my pocket, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Lena. A new whistleblower had just come forward from the neighboring county sheriff's office. They had another Thorne situation brewing. I took a deep breath. Justice wasn't a destination. It was a fight that never ended. If you were moved by this story of courage against corruption, hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful narratives. Share this video to inspire someone to stand up for what's right, and comment below with your thoughts. Please, always comment with respect. Join our community, because the most important stories are the ones the powerful don't want told.